Well howdy, indie warriors! I've just come back from some time on the old dusty trail, wrangling horses, catching outlaws, and blasting alien tentacle monsters out west, and I need something to wet my whistle. What's that? You've never heard of cowpokes fighting aliens or resurrecting robots? Then I have to tell you a bit about the brand new game by Blue Manchu, Wild Bastards. This roguelike shooter has us playing through a spaghetti western-inspired intergalactic adventure full of taunting rivals and bickering crewmates. Is Wild Bastards going to have you spurring your horse towards the finish, or will it buck you off like a wild Mustang? Well, let's find out in our full review.
Oh, you fools.
Anybody see him?
Now, who to eat?
Before we mosey on over into this review, please consider taking a moment to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single video, and check us out at patreon.com/idreamofindiegames for exclusive content, early and ad-free videos, and access to the best damn indie gaming Discord around. Your new indie gaming community is waiting for you. Wild Bastards is intended to act as a spiritual successor to Blue Manchu's previous roguelite shooter, Void Bastards. Outside of the title, however, the two games don't have much in common. The differences begin with the story premise. Wild Bastards is sci-fi, but with a western setting. Think something along the lines of Mandalorian or Firefly. Wild Bastards will see us building up a gang of outlaws seeking riches and bounties to loot across various star systems. Outside of the game taking place in space, the story beats very much follow a western in that our team, the Wild Bastards, were once a deadly gang of outlaws until a wealthy magnate, Jebediah Chaste, took out all but 2 members of the Bastards. The surviving members, Spider Rosa and Casino, take to space aboard their ship, the Drifter, to locate and revive each of the remaining 11 Wild Bastards. However, they are not alone in their travels. Chasing close behind are the Chasteners, the children of Chaste who can be a bit mentally unstable, which makes them extra dangerous. The Chasteners are hoping to stop the Wild Bastards in their tracks and put an end to the whole team once and for all. Overall, the story is told pretty well. The cold open is rather exciting, the game kicking off right in the middle of a big chase. This mirrors what makes space operas and westerns so successful in their storytelling. No beating around the bush with too much exposition. In a similar manner, character dialogue is relatively short and to the point, and also serves to connect the story to the gameplay elements. I will say, as you progress and start getting into the more difficult parts of Wild Bastards, that the story tends to fall off a bit until you unlock the next character. I found that there was much less dialogue between characters as the game went on. In contrast, something as an example here Hades did well was reward deaths with story bits, and that innovation is notably missing from Wild Bastards. As mentioned, Wild Bastards is a roguelite first-person shooter. The developers took elements from different shooter playstyles, however. For example, each character has a different weapon type and special ability like you'd see in a hero shooter, yet the gunplay itself is quick and frantic, more like a boomer shooter. The Wild Bastards' base of operations is the ship known as the Drifter. Aboard the Drifter, you can level up characters with either temporary mods or permanent buffs called aces. You can equip armor and ammunition modifiers for additional buffs, but these are also temporary. From a planetary map screen, you choose a path to go down. This will be either an event to trigger or the location that you next want to loot. After making a choice, you'll choose which 2 bastards to beam down to the planet, and then be taken to yet another map. This secondary map resembles more of a board game. It contains various spots to loot, some shops, and, more importantly, the location of enemies. In a turn-based format, you'll move across the map to loot, and then get beamed back up to the ship. Players have limited movement, and when that movement is done, you'll have to end your turn. When it comes to the enemy phase, some enemies can move while others are permanently stationary. When you encounter these enemies, prepare for a showdown in the form of a first-person shooting segment. Here you'll need to fend off a wave of a predetermined number of enemies. You'll have the ability to switch freely between the 2 bastards that you choose. Switching bastards feels really snappy, almost closer to switching a weapon in a standard FPS rather than swapping out an entire character. This makes the very action of selecting a character a very strategic element of the game. During the map phases, you can expect a set amount of turns before the Chasteners, McNeil and Francisco, catch up. Effectively, these act as more challenging boss fights. The catch here is that they don't die permanently, so they'll follow you into the next map. The showdowns are pretty short and the maps are rather small. This is dramatically different from the previous game, Void Bastards, which acted more as an immersive sin with exploration and puzzles. Instead, Wild Bastards places a heavy emphasis on combat with almost no exploration or sim elements. Players won't need to worry about ammunition management much either. Yes, you will need to reload your weapons, but you won't need to keep a stock of ammunition since ammo is infinite. Paying attention to health is most important, as health pickups during showdowns aren't abundant and you might not have the opportunity to purchase or find healing items on the map. If one character runs out of health, they are injured and we have to use a tonic in the drifter to revive them. If all characters are injured and there's no way to revive them, that run is going to be over and you'll have to start at the beginning of the planetary system. Thankfully, you can keep permanent aces and any characters that were unlocked on your run. However, gold, equipment, and temporary mods will be lost. There is also a currency called infamy, which is earned from showdowns. Infamy unlocks permanent upgrades and other useful resources like tonic or equipment. Essentially, the stronger you get, the more enemies you're likely to kill, and the more infamy you'll collect to spend at the start of the next run. Should you successfully complete a planetary system and revive a Wild Bastard, it'll be time to move on to a new system, which is basically a run reset. You'll lose temporary buffs and gold, but use infamy on upgrades at the start of the new area. Basically, it pays off to complete showdowns when you can. So I know that was a lot, so let me simplify things here. The gameplay loop looks something like this. Choose upgrades from infamy, choose a location to move to, beam to that location, and complete showdowns. The game can get repetitive, though I never really found it boring. That said, I do wish there was more free exploration. I understand that the showdowns are intended to feel like Western shootouts, but the Wild West was also known for travel and exploring uncharted territory in a lawless land. I wish that exploration was able to shine a bit more, especially with the showdown areas being so nicely designed. I want to see what the larger world looks like. Something that the developers did include to shake up gameplay, though, is a relationship feature. Characters can get into feuds, which means they can't beam down together, but these spats seemed random in nature. There aren't dialogue choices or anything to influence relationships. It all seems to be triggered after beaming back to the ship. I just don't think this relationship system is deep enough to be engaging. I'd love if you had more interaction between characters through dialogue choices or some gifting options, something along those lines, but right now it feels like an afterthought that becomes more annoying when your favorite mix of characters can't be chosen. Another aggravating aspect of the game occurs when only one enemy remains in a showdown. Enemies like to move, but they don't always move to your position. Sometimes they stay in place and hide on the opposite side of the map, and you have to go running around looking for them. Essentially, sometimes enemies don't seem to want to fight you, and you have to hunt them down, which pulls you, the player, out of the high-octane shooting action. All told, the actual shooting mechanics feel pretty solid. You'll need to get creative in using cover and rely on a variety of special skills if you hope to have a successful shootout. It's not the slickest feeling shooter in the West, but it gets the job done. Players will find that bosses put up a much greater challenge when compared with the rest of the game, which isn't overly difficult. The procedurally generated planets do keep things feeling a bit fresh, and will change everything from the pull of gravity to the weather itself. And then managing the 13 different outlaws, all of which are unique from one another, can be really fun and rewarding. Should you get through the 15 to 20 hour campaign, there is also a slew of post-game content including a challenge mode to keep you playing. Visually, Wild Bastards has an interesting cartoony art style. I don't know if I'd call it cel-shaded, not in the traditional sense at least. It looks more like a Saturday morning cartoon brought to life. And I'm not just talking about the character dialogue, stills, or the cutscenes, the showdowns too. Enemies have an almost two-dimensional appearance, yet still exist in a 3D space. When in first person, your character's arms have this weird low frame rate movement to them, and it gives the impression that everything is hand-drawn, almost like a flipbook. Characters and enemy designs are pretty solid too. Most of the Wild Bastards are robotic with unique cultural influences and clothing styles. Spider Rosa and Casino especially have visually interesting designs. Further bolstering the visuals is the near-perfect blend of Western and sci-fi. In showdowns, you'll come across various Western towns, deserts, and canyons. The developers have implemented a blend of cyber and digital aesthetics in every aspect of the game. Doors are holograms along with other props like pianos, bottles, and even the trees. But sadly, the visuals aren't perfect. I do wish some of the maps were a little bit less boring to look at. Also, the characters' lip syncing during dialogue is kind of off. I understand the developers wanted to go for a low frame rate look, but it doesn't even look like they tried to match up the mouth movements with their lines. It makes the otherwise solid character designs look a little goofy. Audio in the game is solid for the most part. The voice acting is awesome. Each voice actor puts passion into their character. Yes, they are over the top to the point of parody of Western outlaw characters, but that's sort of the point. Sound effects are also nice. Guns sound chunky and footsteps are heavy. I love the cybernetic sounds that play when you use a ladder or interact in the menu. However, the soundtrack just isn't that memorable. There are some pieces that beautifully blend country, rockabilly, and space rock, but a lot of the music is either too short or sounds like sci-fi ambient space filler.
Hey, man! A moment.
The problem here is that it just isn't a good fit for the showdown sequences. These are fast-paced, intense moments. Why am I listening to music that is so short or doesn't maintain the hype? The ambient music would have been a better fit if Wild Bastards was more of an immersive sim like its predecessor. Instead, this ambience works against the game's pace. Wild Bastards does a wonderful job of transporting players into a sci-fi western world. It features a great cast of characters, well-designed roguelike gameplay loop, and is easy enough for anyone to pick up and play. While it can't entirely escape the repetitive nature of its genre, and the relationship system is a bit of a mess, the beautiful artistic direction and outstanding voice acting are enough to forgive many of its shortcomings. This is a well-made product, further highlighted by the fact that I never experienced any major bugs or performance issues. Alright, with that said, it's time for our final verdict. Here at I Dream of Indie Games, we use a categorical system to rate our games. A bronze genie lamp represents a good game that might be worth playing but has quite a few issues. The silver genie lamp for those great games, but there are some minor issues to be concerned with, and the golden genie lamp of approval for those essential indie releases that belong in your collection. Mediocre games that have a faint glimmer of hope get the rusty lamp, and then we have the indie Krampus, which we don't really like to talk about. Those are the games you want to avoid. With all of that said, I'm gonna award Wild Bastards the silver genie lamp of approval.
You